jolly babies. You ready for the weekend? All right. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce Miss Jess Sinclair. Ms. Sinclair is a graduate of Florida State University, where she earned a master's degree in public administration with a specialist in nonprofit management and a Bachelor of Arts in English with a minor in sociology. She is a certified project management professional and senior certified professional in human resources. Ms. Sinclair made Americus her home in 2016. In that time, she has served as the director of the Sumter County Family Connection, senior specialist in Women Build at Habitat for Humanity International, and is an adjunct English instructor at South Georgia Technical College. Her local service has included the advisory board of the Salvation Army, the advisory council of the Youth Detention Center, and the Judicial Review Citizens Panel for Juvenile Dependency Court. She's on the Ignite Workforce Needs and Curriculum Committee and the Ignite College and Career Academy Board of Directors. That's a new role for her. A volunteer for the Sumter Area Ministerial Association and a facilitator for the Chamber Champion Youth Leadership Program. She serves on the board of directors of the Sumter County Chamber of Commerce, and in 2021, she became the first African American elected as board chair in the 100-year history of the organization. She is also a graduate of South Georgia Leads and South Georgia Leads 2.0. She is an entrepreneur and owner of Nicole Sinclair, LLC, a consulting company offering solutions in project management, operations, human resources, and personal and professional development to organizations and individuals. She is also the founder of Jess by Faith Incorporated, a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting and investing in positive outcomes for girls and women. Her first Girl You Are Enough conference launched on July 27 in Americus and was held on the GSW campus. Ms. Sinclair is a licensed minister serving at the Restoration Church of Americus Incorporated in the areas of wellness and recovery, outreach to girls, youth ministry, logistics, and planning. She teaches Bible study and sings with the praise and worship team. She is currently a student in the Master of Divinity program at Columbia International University with a focus on ministry studies. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Jess Sinclair.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. He was reading that and I was like, is he talking about me? Goodness, sometimes when you're sending things and you don't really hear it out loud, you don't always, it has a different impact when you hear it. I want to thank you to the foundation for having me, to Georgia Southwestern State University for thinking that leadership and preparing young minds for leadership is a worthy endeavor. And Dr. Gordon, though she is not here, thank her for extending the invitation to me and to my co-member of the Ignite board, Ms. Peggy. Thank you so much. Thank you. And most importantly, I would ask you to put your hands together, give yourselves a round of applause for showing up today. You can do better than that. We think about a lot of things in terms of what makes a leader. And one of the things I have come to discover, leaders show up. Mm-hmm. And you all got up on a cold Friday and you showed up. Mm-hmm. So that is worthy of applause. I am Jess Sinclair, and I think most of you all look, I have a daughter who will be 27 next month, so I'm just looking out and remembering when she was your age. Wow, time flies. So what I want to talk to you about today is compassionate leadership. Mm-hmm. And when we think about compassion, I'm going to ask you, what comes to mind? Compassion. Throw it out, just yell it.
Energy.
Energy? Okay. Caring.
Empathy.
Empathy, very good. Caring, energy, empathy. What else? One more person. Open-minded, being open-minded. As was stated in my introduction, I have the privilege of serving as an adjunct instructor at South Georgia Technical College. But my original experience in teaching English started when I was a graduate student at Florida State University. And that was an experience for me that opened my eyes to what compassion is and does. I came into that experience as a student who had graduated with a bachelor's degree, already had a master's degree, and went back to school in the area of English, rhetoric, and communication. It's my first experience as an educator in a college classroom. So I was about 25-ish, African American, on a very diverse campus. However, most of the students that were coming through that first year experience class that had to take those core classes did not look like me. And I had preconceived notions of what their experiences in life had been. It was through the personal narrative, reading about the experiences of young white males who understood what it was like to be profiled when they walked in groups and went to stores just because of their age. I didn't have that concept before I taught that class. Learning that there were students who presented as wealth, looked like they had everything going for themselves, but realizing that they too were first-generation college students. Realizing that they came from families where one had a sick parent and one was a first-generation college student and the only person who spoke English in her family. So when she left South Florida to come to college in Tallahassee, she was leaving parents who couldn't read their own likeness. It was through those experiences and then coming here where things are a little bit different. We had a huge international population at Florida State. The stadium fits 80,000 people can fit in the Florida State University Doak Campbell Stadium. And I have been in that stadium and been able to hear the roar of the crowd, and then coming and teaching, coming to a community where there aren't 80,000 people. And still, there's a sound that the community makes. And each of us contributes to that sound. So when I had the opportunity to teach at South Georgia Technical College, which is very different from Florida State University, I came there with preconceived notions of what that sound would be like and what those students would be like and what their experiences would be. And yes, of course, there were first-generation college students, but now there were mothers who were returning to college after their children had graduated. There were grandmothers and grandfathers that were coming to school and learning new trades and having all this anxiety about technology. And there were dual enrollment students who were still in high school. And all of these individuals were in the same class. So everybody's making a different sound, and it's my responsibility to teach writing. And one semester, I came into the classroom, and I thought I was in the wrong room. There were all of these men, only men, in the class. They all had on green vests, right? And I'm like, I must be in the wrong class. Because, state of college, maybe they were there for something technical. Well, it turns out that they were all in the diesel engineering, diesel mechanic program, and they had to take English too, as well. And they were all white males as well. So literally I walked in and turned around and walked out, and I was like, I think I'm in the wrong class. They're like, no, that's your class. So this is the second time in my teaching experience where what I came prepared to teach just wasn't going to work for the population that I was facing. Not because they could not read or write, but because the material that I had prepared was for a different type of student with different interests. When you teach in technical college, you realize that a lot of times the workforce is the first thought of the student. And so, as many of you may have experienced, you don't really, unless it's your major, you don't come to college wanting to take English 1101 or math or algebra. You come for your major, right? So if your major is diesel mechanics, English 1101 is probably the last thing you think about when you get up in the morning. So I'm facing these students and I need to communicate with them. And I had to shift my plan. And that is a part of compassionate leadership. All of this ties in together. Sometimes we come in with a plan and a preconceived notion of what we're going to present or what is being presented to us, and we look out and we feel the energy. We have a sense of empathy. We care about the experience that other people are having, and so we shift. And what I was able to do was take a short story that I love to teach, and I'm going to teach it to you today. And that story is called The Things They Carried. And it is written by Tim O'Brien, and it is a story that is set. Has anybody heard this story before? All right. Are you English majors? You know? Woo! All right. All right. So, and congratulations for everybody else's major too as well. Thank you. I have a friend in the room. So, The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien is this story that is set in the Vietnam War. So I choose a war story because it's a classroom full of men, and I think, they will be excited. This will keep their attention. They're gonna think we're talking about things that blow up or something. But really within this war story, it's also a love story. They didn't see that coming. It is also a story about caring about your fellow person. It is a story about being mindful that everyone has something that they carry. Who came into the room with a backpack? Raise your hand. Who came with a cell phone? Who came thinking about an assignment that you have? That's student. Who came wondering what some family member is doing right now? Who came with the expectations of your loved ones, the expectations of your teachers, the expectations of yourself? Those are the things that we carry. And regardless of whether 10 of us has a backpack, each of us individually has something in our backpack that nobody else can see. Compassionate leadership is not about knowing what's in that backpack. It's just knowing that that backpack exists, right? And so in this story, it starts out, and one of the things I carry very recently is reading glasses. If you can see, give yourselves a round of applause. It gets harder. Enjoy it now. It took me 20 years to realize what people were saying when they said, enjoy life. They weren't just talking about parties, they were talking about your eyesight too. So, the things they carried were largely determined by necessity. And it's important, I want to read this to you because we're talking about a war story. We're talking about people, their lives and other lives are on the line. So everything that they carry, every weight, every ounce has an implication or an impact. If you brought a backpack, the books that you carry, they begin to weigh on your shoulders. It changes the pace. Most people don't run with a heavy backpack on their shoulders. We start to walk a little bit slower. If we're walking up a hill, things like that. So weight matters. Doesn't matter if it's 2 ounces or 20 pounds. Everything matters. And many of us, as it says here, the things they carry are determined by necessity, the need. And everybody's need is different, right? So what I need may be different from what you need. So among the necessities or near necessities were P38 can openers. We're talking about people in war and they're carrying can openers as a necessity. Pocket knives, heat tabs, wrist watches, dog tags, mosquito repellent, chewing gum, candy, salt tablets, packets of Kool-Aid, lighters, matches, sewing kits, military payment certificates, sea rations, and 2 or 3 canteens of water. Together, these items weighed between 15 and 20 pounds, depending upon a man's habits or rate of metabolism. Henry Dobbins, who was a big man, carried extra rations. He was especially fond of canned peaches and heavy syrup over pound cake. Everybody's necessities aren't the same. Dave Jensen, who practiced field hygiene, carried a toothbrush, dental floss, and several hotel-sized bars of soap he had stolen in Sydney, Australia. Necessity dictated. Because the land was mined and booby-trapped, it was standard operating procedure for each man to carry a steel-centered, nylon-covered flak jacket which weighed 6.7 pounds, but which on hot days seemed much heavier. And it makes me ask you the question, what are the things that you carry for necessity? And as you think about the answer to that question, and you look to the left or to the right in the rows behind you, you may never know what someone else carries because of necessity. Some of us carry the history of our families because that history is not captured anywhere else other than in our memories and our experiences. And if we don't carry the history as a necessity, it may be lost. We carry the expectations as the first generation college students or the fifth generation college students. We carry those things as necessities, and they drive us in the things that we do. So compassionate leadership. Maybe you don't know what someone else's necessity is, but it is knowing that some things people carry out of necessity. What they carried was partly a function of rank, partly a function of field specialty. Some people are carrying science books, some carry novels, but it's based on your major, right? So that's what that is talking about. As a first lieutenant and platoon leader, Jimmy Cross carried a compass, maps, code books, binoculars. He carried a strobe light. And because of his rank, he carried the responsibility for the lives of his men. As an educator who had the privilege of educating grandmothers and mothers and fathers and parents, single parents and married parents, I came to have a new respect for what it feels like and what the experience is like for others to carry the responsibility of the lives of others. Even in our community, we see signs that say back the blue, and whatever our politics are, you cannot help but acknowledge that there's someone somewhere, even in this community, who has the responsibility for caring for and about the lives of others. Those in the medical profession who travailed during a pandemic, the responsibility of caring the lives of others. And think about this, as those individuals serve in very specific ways in the community, there's also someone somewhere at a restaurant who's filling an order to send it up there so they have something to eat. So just because you don't have a particular title, or just because the work you do isn't on an elevated platform, it does not mean that what you contribute is not significant in some way. We all, when we think about the fabric of our lives and our placement in the community, have a responsibility for caring for and carrying the lives of others. Some of us feel that heavier than others. I am also a minister, licensed minister, and I've had the privilege, the ability, and sometimes it feels like the burden of caring for the lives and being responsible for the lives of others. Whether it's through prayer, whether it's through reading the scripture, whether it's through just listening and reserving opinions. Sometimes the best help you can give someone is just to listen and be quiet. And in that way, you demonstrate compassionate leadership. And in that way, you are also caring for and taking responsibility for the lives of others. Mitchell Sanders carried PRC-25 radio, 26 pounds, with its battery. The medic carried a canvas satchel filled with morphine and plasma and malaria tablets and surgical tape and comic books. And all the things a medic must carry. A total weight of nearly 20 pounds. They're in the jungle and he thinks that a necessity is comic book. A big man, therefore a machine gunner, Henry Dobbins carried the M60, which weighed 23 pounds unloaded, but which was almost always loaded. In addition, he carried between 10 and 15 pounds of ammunition draped in belts across his chest and shoulders. But Ted Lavender, 34 rounds, and he went down under an exceptional burden of more than 20 pounds of ammunition, plus the flak jacket and helmet and rations and water and toilet paper and tranquilizers and all the rest, plus the unweighed fear. What they carried varied by mission. The things they carried were also determined to some extent by superstition. And some things they carried in common. They shared the weight of memory. They took up what others could no longer bear, and often they carried each other, the wounded or the weak. When we think about compassion, the first words people tend to throw out, and someone said it here, empathy. What is the difference between empathy and sympathy and compassion? Empathy, we feel what someone else is feeling. We try to kind of put ourselves in their shoes. And then sympathy means you can understand what they're feeling, but compassion requires action. So you can feel what somebody else feels, and you can try to put yourself in their shoes, but what do you do about it? That's when compassion kicks in. That adds action to your emotion. So you become aware of what others are carrying. So with compassionate leadership, it requires that leaders be aware of the needs of those they lead and to understand that we don't all need the same things. Some people are motivated by trust. If you trust me with something, then that makes me feel like you value me. Some of us are motivated by autonomy, being able to make our own decisions, right? Self-governing. I get to a certain point as a leader and nobody gets to tell me what to do. Acts of service. Some people are, well, think about the 5 love languages. Anybody heard about that? So, everybody responds in different ways. Affirmation. Some people need for you to tell them, I did a good job. For sometimes people say, well, we'll give you professional development and we'll give you a raise, and all of that's great, but the person is still not motivated because they're not being affirmed. A great affirmation and responding to what someone has done goes a long way, especially when you have a short budget. Adults, career professionals, you get what I mean. So, compensation, investment, time, professional development, coaching, mentorship, referrals, and knowledge. Those are all things that are motivators for people. Being aware of those needs moves a leader to action. You have a choice, but it's not the same thing as solving, right? I know that there are these issues. I know that this is something, that you're carrying something, but it's still, as a leader, not your responsibility to solve things for people, right? But to understand that there is something and to be a partner in collaboration with the success of others. So, one thing I found as an entrepreneur is that it is very difficult to demonstrate compassion for others if we have not done so for ourselves. It's an inside job, people. So, compassionate leadership, I have to do it for myself first. And so I'm gonna share this. It's my shirt. It says, "Girl, you are enough." Right? Can y'all see that? So when I got up this morning, my first act of compassion toward myself was to put this shirt on and remind myself, you deserve to be in the room. I made this shirt and I had a conference because I wanted girls and women to have that experience. Oftentimes in this society, no matter who you are, man, woman, whatever your race or ethnicity, people are often asking you, what do you bring to the table? What do you have? And a lot of times we go and we get our resumes and our accolades and the things that people have said, and we forget sometimes that just like you did this morning on a Friday, a cold Friday in October, you showed up. Sometimes it is just your presence that makes the difference. And so I made the shirt so that not only when I look in the mirror, I see it for me, but I made it for the girls and women, because it doesn't say I am enough, right? It says, girl, you are enough. And I have the style for men as well. On my website, simplyjess.com. It is under construction right now, but you will be able to see. And if you all are in the community this weekend, who's going to the Americus Music Festival? Okay, so I want to see you all out at the Americus Music Festival tomorrow. If you come by my booth, I might just have something for you. But, girl, you are enough. When you read it, it speaks to you. Right? So it's not just about me wearing it for me, reminding me when I look in the mirror that I should be in the room, but when somebody else wears it, I want this to speak outward to you, because you deserve to be in the room too. It doesn't matter your GPA. It doesn't matter what your hair looks like. It doesn't matter what your shoes look like. It does not matter what your bank account looks like, the history of your family, the trauma you may have experienced, witnessed, observed. It does not matter. You are enough. And it is very important for those of us who want to be leaders, in order for us to operate with compassion for others, we must first demonstrate that within ourselves, to ourselves. I'm not going to ask who wants to be married. Don't raise your hand, I'm not looking. I often tell people when I do professional and personal development with them, some of them are married and some are not. But the response to this question is the same, whether it's a man or a woman. What were your vows that you took for yourself? And that is typically the response, quiet. Because we're geared towards thinking, I'm going to get married, I'm going to take a vow. If you're even going into civil service, we take vows and make commitments to everything outside of ourselves. What about the vow to you? Mm-hmm. What about the covenant promise with yourself? Right? So my challenge, my homework for you all is to take some time to write yourself vows. I promise to love you. I promise to honor you. I promise to listen to you. I promise to speak up for you. I promise to demonstrate compassion toward you. And don't just write them, say them. Look in the mirror. And I had to do it over. I challenged myself to do this until I could do it without crying. It took a long time. But look yourself in the eye and say those things to you. When you're able to feel like you are enough, when you're able to own the space that you take up, then you don't mind other people taking up space. You make room for other people when you've made room for yourself. And that is compassionate leadership. The choices you make have an impact, even when it appears that no one is following you. If you think that you need followers to be a leader, I want to challenge that concept for you. Sometimes the leaders are the ones that nobody is following. Sometimes these are the individuals who are making the quiet choice to abstain. They're making the quiet choice to operate with integrity. They are making the choice to open the door for somebody when everybody before them just let the door close. I had the privilege of living with a fractured ankle for 4 months. Excuse me. And I had the privilege of having a knee scooter. And I say that as a privilege because this is the second time in my life where I have experienced what it's like to not be so able. I experienced what it was like to wheel my little wheelie thing up and realize how heavy the door is. Because weight changes when you're balancing on one foot, right? I have been driving since I was 15, and I am not 15, even though I may look it. But to have to depend on other people for transportation, not just transportation of me, but my little scooter, all of those things, they open your eyes and they give you perspective, and they taught me and re-taught me about what it's like to see other people, what it's like to be invisible, especially when you think you're already invisible. You realize there's a whole other level of invisibility that you have not experienced. I had the privilege of serving as the coordinator for the Sumter County Family Connection here in Americus. And I had the privilege of learning about how we have a population in our community that does not have English as a first language, and that creates challenges for children that are in schools trying to communicate with English-speaking teachers, but they have Spanish-speaking or other language-speaking parents. And this child who's in the 2nd grade is trying to translate. These things give you perspective, and they open your eyes to the fact that we must, as leaders, demonstrate compassion, right? And if I am used to shrinking in the room so that I don't make noise because I don't think I am enough, how can I care about that child in the 2nd grade or that person for whom the door is too heavy, right? And so, can somebody give me the time? What time is it? Because I can... All right, I'm about to wrap up so we can ask some questions. So, going back to the things they carried their own lives. The pressures were enormous. Purely for comfort, they would throw away rations. Remember earlier in this story, the rations were a necessity. But for comfort, they're throwing away the things they need because the weight is heavy. For the most part, they carried themselves with poise, a kind of dignity. They were afraid of dying, but they were even more afraid to show it. Leadership. I'm going to reread this sentence. They were afraid of failing, but they were even more afraid to show it. They were afraid of not graduating, but they were even more afraid to show it. They were afraid that the financial aid wouldn't come through, but they were even more afraid to show it. They were afraid that their parents would be divorcing, but they were even more afraid to show it. It's different when we're talking about war, but this really mirrors our lives, right? You can put yourself in the story. They carried all the emotional baggage of men who might fail. They carried shameful memories. The common secret of cowardice barely restrained the instinct to run or freeze or hide. And in many respects, this was the heaviest burden of all, for it could never be put down. It required perfect balance and perfect posture. They carried their reputations. Who carries a reputation? You don't have to raise your hand. They carried a student's greatest fear, which was the fear of blushing. It was what had brought them to college in the first place. Not dreams of glory or honor, just to avoid the blush of dishonor. They risked failure, not achieving their goals, just so as not to die of embarrassment. They did not submit to the obvious alternative, which was simply to close the eyes and fail. A mere matter of falling, of quitting. Yet none of you in this room have quit. It wasn't courage exactly, not valor. Rather, they were too frightened to fail. And by and large, they carried these things inside, maintaining masks of composure. And that may not be everybody's story, but it is somebody's story. Some people have decided to go into college and to press forward toward degrees and professions, because on the other side is the fear of poverty. On the other side is the fear of being embarrassed by not following in the family tradition or living up to the expectations that others have of you. And even with all the weight of all those things, as I said, you got up today on a Friday, a cold October day, and you showed up. You could have stayed in. You could have quit. You could have decided long ago that this simply is not worth it. But you got up. And you are here today. And so when I say give yourselves a round of applause, that is what I'm thinking about. And at the end of this, we're going to try that again. And so as a professional in operations and human resources and project management, professional development, ministry, service, I look at what I do and what I've had the opportunities and privileges to do. As I told someone I worked with, I said, well, in operations and human resources, I don't work for people. I work for the organizations to ensure that they operate with the integrity with which the mission has been built by the people. And by doing my job, I ensure that the people are able to operate and that they're able to achieve their goals and their dreams. Nobody really likes the human resource person, though, let me tell you, because we're all about compliance, operations, standard operating procedures, risk management. No, you cannot do that. No, you cannot. So I'm always like the wet blanket on the burning fire. But that's why I have to look beyond like the way managers and employees and people look at me, because I know it's my compassion for them that actually drives the information that I give them, right? Because if I didn't care, I'd just get a check, let you fail, go to jail. But I don't do that. I carry the responsibility of their lives, their choices, right? And you have that opportunity too. One more thing that I want to share with you is my favorite poem in the whole wide world. And it is called Our Deepest Fear. Has anyone heard this before? Raise your hand. Ooh, good. Well, this poem is written by Marianne Williamson. And before I read it, I want you to think about compassionate leadership. I want you to think about your trajectory in life, your goals, and all the things that you packed in your bag. What is your deepest fear? What are you afraid of? What scares you? And it changes from day to day, because one of my deepest fears this morning was that I was going to have to iron to come here. And I realized that fear actually came true, and then I had to change what I was going to wear. And anyway, fears change. They change. What is your deepest fear? Marianne Williamson writes, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, handsome, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. You showed up. You got up. You came. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you for your attention this morning. If you have questions or reflections, I would love to hear them. If you want to find out more about me, you can go to Facebook. Do people your age still use Facebook? Okay, all right. Go to Facebook, and it is Jess Sinclair. You can also find it on Jess by Faith. That's Jess by Faith. You can also go to my website, which is under construction, resetwithjess.com. And so if there are any questions, please, I'm ready to hear them. And if you would stay, I would love to get a picture with all of you who would choose to be photographed with me. We're going to do it out there in the audience. Any questions?
What English classes do you teach at the TED?
I don't teach there anymore. Full time with my business. Oh, and I bake too. So when you come out to the music festival, look for the pink tent with the cupcake lady on the front of the cart. But I taught English 1101, 1102, workplace technical communication, literature, intermediate reading and writing, and I think that was it. That's enough. Well, yes, ma'am.
I actually took your 1102 class after the sixth, by the way.
It was good, wasn't it?
Yes. The things in here is like my favorite book. I have a question. So when like starting in education, like how did you evolve into all the other like things that you do? What made you make that change to want to do all the things that you do?
Oh, that's a great question. So, I started out in the business program. I was in a 5-year School of Business and Administration, this top, amazing, and I was doing it because people said you make a lot of money doing that, going into business. So during those old days, those were really the only kind of things I knew about. Be a business person, go try to be a doctor, could not do that. So I was in the business program and I took a writing class. Had loved writing and took this class just to de-stress. And my professor said, you need to get out of the business program. You are a writer. And I was like, there is no way anybody can make money doing that. And at that point in my academic journey, though, it became less about what is going to make money and more about I need a break. And you all have probably experienced that at some point in your academic life, like, why am I doing this? And so I took that class, and then I ended up getting a degree in English. And I knew, though, that I wanted to, in some way, to help people. And so from there, minored in sociology, which gave me a really excellent overview of society, and not just problems in society, but solutions. And I'm a solution-oriented person, so then I went back to college and got a degree in public administration, nonprofit management, which kind of helped frame the ideas. Like, I want to work in a nonprofit, not really sure what it is. When I finished my master's degree, I went to work for a consulting firm. It was the hardest job I have ever had in my life. I was not accustomed to that kind of discipline. And my boss did not play. And so I learned, we served individuals, that senior citizens and organizations that served them. I learned development. I was a fundraiser. I had to raise a lot of money. I learned about senior living. I learned about producing exhibits, like so many different things. I hated the job, but I found out that I could do all of those things and help people that I wanted to help. So it's just kind of like over time, being exposed to different experiences, and then some things were out of necessity, like the things they carried, right? I was at a point, wasn't making a lot of money, so I started baking, started selling what I was baking, and started making money at it and things like that. Then I began to understand that I had other things that benefited people, and so I started to kind of craft how I would offer that. And it's been a very long journey. And that's another thing about leadership. You can't be afraid to change, to shift, to be shaped by your experiences. And then because when you're shaped by them, then you can shape them, right? And so just kind of keeping my fingers on the pulse, one, that I still have the heart to give. Find opportunities to serve in your community, whether it's a board or volunteer work, get different experiences like that. Being on the board of the Chamber of Commerce in Americus has been amazing. I get to learn about all the things that other people are doing and the help that they need to build amazing businesses. And I was not even thinking about pressing into human resources when I was at South Georgia Tech. And now here I am offering it as part of my business. That was a long answer. I hope I answered your question. Anyone else?
Do you feel like people take compassionate leaders seriously? And if not, like, how did you overcome that?
Absolutely, people take compassionate leaders seriously. Because you gotta remember, we're not talking about warm fuzzies all the time, right? Compassionate leaders are aware. This is an awareness thing, right? And it's an awareness that drives you to action. So a compassionate leader may not be the one that's gonna give you the hug. The compassionate leader may say, I see that you're having a bad day, right? And what do you need to overcome the challenge that you're having, right? And at some point, a compassionate leader is a person who's going to say, now you're getting in your own way, right? So it's not going to always be the person who's giving you a pat on your back, because that's not what everybody needs to succeed at different points of their lives. So absolutely, because compassionate leaders are the ones who take action. And they don't take it based on assumptions. They take it based on research, observation, and communication. Did that answer your question? Anyone else?
How would you differ between a compassionate leader and a relational leader?
Compassionate leaders are, again, action-oriented. When we think about relational, and from the standpoint and the context that I'm defining, relational leader is about building relationships. So is that what we're talking about? Okay, so when you can build a relationship with someone, and sometimes those relationships are based on necessity. We network, right? And if someone has a product or a connection that we can benefit from, then we're going to network with them. Okay, I need to know your information and want to talk to you. That's a relationship, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has any depth to it. A compassionate leader is someone who has to have depth with the people that they have relationships with. So, how do you have, if you're leading 70 people, how do you have relationships that have depth? How can you do that? So, that may require some delegation, some operations techniques, right? And knowing that you can't do everything. So, a compassionate leader uses the relationships and builds teams, right? Be able to delegate things to trusted individuals so that as we go down or up on our organizational chart, you have your finger on the pulse of what everybody's doing, but you're not the one who's checking all the pulses all the time. And so when you lead from a place where you are disconnected from those that you have responsibility for, you may have a relationship with them, but you're not serving them or yourselves very well. And a lot of times you see people might have retreats, employee retreats, and they try to connect with people, or they have, when I worked at Habitat, one of the amazing things they do over there, every Wednesday they would have devotions. And you could come or not come, but it was a time to get together, and if you pray, if you don't, you can be quiet, whatever the case, we would get together, we would gather. And so that was a way of not just building relationships with coworkers that were in the same department, but you got to experience. The CEO who lives in Atlanta would come down sometimes and participate in that. And then I was invited to participate in that a few months ago, and they're doing it virtual, and there were like 200 people on the virtual thing, because those relationships matter. But it's the depth of it, the caring about it beyond the workplace, that makes that compassionate leadership. Did I answer your question? Okay. Anyone else? Who's coming to the music festival again? Okay, looks like Pink 10. Okay, looks like Pink 10. I will have cupcakes. Just gonna let you know, I have cupcakes. So, who is going to take the challenge and write those self-vows? Very good, very good, very good. Don't just write them, say them. Look yourself in the eye. And so I have a group activity. If you could all stand. I want you to put down whatever you have in your hands. I want you, for a moment, close your eyes, stretch your arms, get a little loose as far as the time will take you. Your space will take you. I want you to think about the things you carry. Think about what the weight must be in this room. If the person next to you, behind you, in front of you is carrying something that is equivalent to what you are carrying. I want you to take a deep breath, and I want you to release it. You are not what you carry. That does not define you. And so together on the count of 3, I want you to repeat, I am enough. Okay? 1, 2, 3. I am enough. Now we're going to do it again. I want you to say it like you believe it, like it's not early in the morning on a Friday in cold October. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to do it one more time, and we're going to pretend that all the people out there between on the other side of those double doors need to know it, because if they hear you say it, they're going to believe it about themselves. Say it like leaders who are compassionately demonstrating that if I believe I am enough, and if I say it loud enough that it shakes the doors on the outside, then the sound of our collective voices will rain out into the parking lot, and other people will know that they too are enough, and maybe, just maybe, change will happen. We're going to do it one more time in your outside voices. I am enough. 1, 2, 3. I am enough. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you so much. If anybody wants to take pictures, now.
So on behalf of the university, we would like to give you a little small gift to thank you for coming and speaking to us today.
This is cute. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Excuse me. take that picture. I'm going to, probably, what do you think? I need